about that. We've had dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews with different constituencies. We've done some forums. And I'm going to go through all of that, and I'm going to hit some of the themes that are starting to emerge as we start to push this forward. But let me start first and foremost with talking a little bit about what a master plan is. So the University Physical Master Plan is an opportunity to engage the entire Rutgers community, faculty, staff, students, neighbors, in envisioning the future for its surroundings. What does this mean? We are informed by the academic plan, by the strategic plan of the university. We are the roadmap that physically gets us to where the university wants to be. So, we could not get ahead of the strategic plan. We had to kind of come in behind it. And actually, let me show you another slide first. So the strategic plan, just recently completed, along with the facilities condition analysis that we're doing, and picking up on all of the student experience, which we're really virtually taking from and gleaning from all of the surveys that were done, an online survey, and gleaning from the interviews that we've had and meetings with different students and different student organizations. So we've had a process. It started off with the strategic planning process. We did a space utilization study across the university, and this is across the university, but today we're really talking about New Brunswick. To determine how space was being used and what space we actually had out there. I can tell you with confidence that we are one of the largest universities in the country with 27 million square feet and a little bit over 1,000 buildings that we have. So we are big, huge. We had a survey out called My Campus Survey, which everyone got. We had about a 10% return rate on that, and I'm told that that's pretty good. We had an adjacency tool for faculty and asked them to fill that out to gather information as to how faculty works, how it interacts with other faculty, where it teaches, where it is, where the offices are, so we can get a better handle on the data. We literally are interpreting the data, prioritizing the issues, developing potential strategies, and then, of course, developing a plan that by the end of the year we hope to take to the Board of Governors. So right now, we're probably right here in this area. And I'll show you that on the timeline at the end of the presentation. So we've collected the data, we've taken in the data, we've looked at the data, we're starting to see what the trends are, and we're starting to see what people are telling us what the feedback is. Today is really to give you what we found by way of data, number one. Number two, hopefully validate some of that data to make sure that we're on the right track. And number three, be able to understand if we've missed something or if there's something you feel is important that's not really in there. So there'll be some time for questions and answers at the end. I'll leave more than enough time for that. This is what I call the condensed version or the Reader's Digest version. Post-Friday, we will have on masterplan.rutgers.edu the entire presentation. Which slide is that? It's somewhere about 120 slides, right? About 120 slides. This one, I'm only going to keep you here for 80. It's okay, either way. It's all right. It'll be like interactive. We probably have about 2 dozen slides here, and I'll move through them rather quickly. I think you'll find a lot of this really interesting, and I think it's the first time we've done something that's so all-encompassing. We really went out there and tried, and there's nothing to gain and nothing to lose. There's a lot to gain, but there's nothing to lose in getting as much feedback as we possibly can. I mean, you know, good decisions are made on good feedback, and they're made on good data. And some of the stuff, frankly, you know what, administration doesn't want to hear. And some of it students don't want to hear. So let's get started. Let me walk you through some of what we've learned. So we did this My Campus survey, and I'm going to show you highlights of some of its findings. If you look here, these are the 4 main areas that were looked at. So on the campus life, we looked at housing and dining, socializing and recreation. Academic life, we looked at classrooms, studying spaces, working, the core of the campus, where you go, where you hang out. Then quality of place, you know what's hard to reach, what are good outdoor spaces, what are good indoor spaces. Safety, right? Where you feel safe, where you feel unsafe, what's the perception versus what's the reality. Improvements and what they look like. And then mobility, how do you get around? from walking to biking, driving, Rutgers buses, parking, all of those good things. So let me tell you what we started to find and how this all started to come together. When we looked at dining, and let me tell you this, here, this side, you'll only see this on the first slides, this is where all the little dots, where all the answers came from. So that's key to us because it also shows us, and I'm going to show you, how people get around and what they do. So when we look at dining, we looked at the Bush Campus Center, Woody's, Broward Commons, Easton Avenue, George Street, the Douglas Campus Center, the Cook Campus Center. The idea was, where do people eat? And literally every place that people go to eat have been listed, and they've talked about them, and there's probably some comment associated with them. What did we learn? Well, we're told that Livingston has the best dining options, while the other facilities need improvement. And for those of you that have been over to Livingston lately, you would probably agree with this. I don't think this would take a big survey to find that out. Broward Commons needs renovation. I think all of us believe that. There's no good open spaces adjacent to Bush Dining Hall for outdoor dining, something that, to tell you the truth, I didn't really expect to see, but I thought it was a great point. And of course, there's few options on the west side of the Bush campus. So that's actually from Allison Road, classrooms going out towards Waxman and out towards Rutgers Biomedical and Health Sciences campus. And that's true. There's just Woody's out at the research tower, embedded in the research tower, right? So that's true. There's very few options. There's actually no options. There's one option that sits out there. Faculty and staff, the dining options are satisfactory at Bush and Livingston. The Broward Commons faculty staff dining room is dark and dismal, and there's no faculty staff dining room at Cook Douglas. Short-term visitor parking is a problem. That would be better served if there was some availability to afford short-term parking for the dining facilities. I think we recognize this. My conversations with Jack Molinar over time have reflected some of this, especially on Livingston, where we definitely need to carve out something there to be able to access that Livingston dining hall. So, in some instances, it's validated what we've known all along. In other instances, it's pointed out issues that we really had not focused on. So, additional facility suggestions about a nice Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts at the Bush and College Avenue. Dining operation suggestions, and of course we share all of this with the different entities. Wider variety of food options is desired, including vegan and vegetarian, and longer hours at Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and Donuts. Again, all of this information will be posted online. What I want to do is give you a flavor. How are you doing? Give you a flavor for what it is that we're learning and what we're picking up. Socializing, typically, student centers and the Passion Club as spots to socialize. Student centers remain important hubs of social and academic interaction. I think this is a theme we're going to come back to as we walk through this, and we're going to couple that with libraries as well. Rutgers Student Center is centrally located, but perceived to be unwelcoming and cramped. I have to tell you, I'm comfortable right now, but it's a perception, at least that's out there. Bush Student Center is uninviting and dark with poor pedestrian connections to the academic core. Lots of talk about computer labs and the lack of in the student centers. Douglas Campus Center is confusing to navigate. Paths from the Douglas Campus Center towards Nielsen aren't well lit at night, and people don't feel safe. Again, this is not a new issue. This is an issue that it actually validates what we've heard over and over again. I see Jay's here and Elizabeth's here, and we've had this conversation on many, many occasions. So, socializing, faculty and staff typically socialize within their own departments, and student groups are an important part of student life, but lack appropriate space. I think, and let me just read a little bit more into that. Meeting space for student groups, meetings and rehearsals is needed, and student cultural groups have not been allotted enough space. So this is a little bit of a change, I think, over the course of the last 10 years. So I don't think, and what I mean by that is 10 years ago, I don't think we heard as much about student-centric spaces as we hear today, especially the need for bigger spaces. I wasn't as big a part of the conversation as I recall. When we did the last master plan, as a matter of fact, it was not as large a part of the conversation, but it is a growing piece of the conversation. And another critically important piece are the cultural centers. Again, scattered all over the place. They're not consistent. Some are larger, some are smaller, some have better facilities, some have terrible facilities. So I think that's an area that we need to concentrate on if our intent is sincerely to upgrade the student experience at Rutgers University. Recreation, all the places you would typically think of, the Werblin Center, Livingston Apartments, Johnson Park, the Ecological Preserve, College Ave, Gym, Eastern Avenue Gym, Skelly Field, the Loring Gym, all places where people recreate. This is what we've been told. So it's not just internal to the university, but we're looking at spots that are external to the university as well when we talk about all of the different parts. Werblin Center is the most popular facility. It gets crowded at peak times. The older recreation facilities are in need of updating. I don't think there's a big surprise here. There's a very big difference when you go from Livingston to Werblin, or even when you go from the Cook Rec Center to Werblin. Recreation facilities don't serve commuter students' needs to conveniently store their books and keys while using the rec facilities. Again, I think an important part. We don't just have residents in New Brunswick, and it's probably about a 50-50 mix between commuter students and resident students. The Ecological Preserve is a campus resource that could use improvement. Let me stop here a second. The Ecological Preserve is 350 acres of open land. 350 acres of open land. It is the largest single parcel in Middlesex County of open land, and yet mostly what happens there is tree sprawl. There's nothing that goes on at the Ecological Preserve. It's, for the most part, the trails are not well signed, difficult to get around. You know, ROTC uses it. The Piscataway Fire Department uses it once a year for training purposes. But it's not well incorporated into the fabric of Rutgers University. And yet, it is probably the single largest piece of land that we have sitting there as open space. So, this plan, in some way, shape, or fashion, and I may be either pontificating or already articulating something you will see in it because I will push for it, needs to be able to incorporate that ecological preserve. We just can't let the land lay fallow. It's not proper to do that. So, some suggestions: clear trails, better wayfinding, rest stops. You know, I kind of think just a map and a trailhead to be able to get in there would be a big improvement to the ecological preserve. There aren't enough rec fields for informal use, pickup games, that type of thing. Access to recreation isn't always convenient. There's no bus service, for instance, to the Rutgers golf course. Better pedestrian crossings are needed to get to Werblin. And club and intramural sports often practice at night, so we're looking for better lighting, better accessibility in the outdoor facilities. Open spaces, this is outside spaces that are just for recreation. Again, some of these may overlap. You're looking at the Ecological Preserve. You're looking at the malls, the Bush Mall, Livingston Mall, the Voorhees Mall, Donaldson Park, Boyd Park, and Tilley's Field. Again, not getting a lot of attention as well, yet that's a jewel that sits out there. Iconic landscapes across the campuses are Voorhees Mall and the Passion Park. This is probably true. It's the two spots we see all the time in pictures. It's you know, it's kind of what's been advertised. I don't think there's anything new to that, but I do think that we've begun to create some new iconic landscapes. When we think about now what sits on Livingston and the mall through Livingston and the transformation that's happened there with the fountain and you know, a whole new set of people that literally hang out there and use that area. That's what we need to now export, in my opinion, to other campuses, so that students can get that same type of activity, that same type of recreation space, and I mean passive recreation for the most part, on the other campuses. So what are we looking at? If you look at something like the Bush Mall, which really, you don't even know it's a mall unless somebody points out that it's a mall. And yet, it's surrounded by buildings, right? It's framed like a mall. It's just not articulated like a mall. So the dirty little secret in our business is that, you know, we look at lots of studies. We try and figure out what's appealing to students. Curb appeal is extremely important. You know, one of the things that we know, and that's been proven time and time again, is that very few people, when they leave the university, especially visitors and students as well, but visitors, when they leave the university, don't really pick off a building that they think, oh man, that's the greatest thing I ever saw, right? It's not what's in your mind. And those of you that visit other universities, you probably think back and you'll say, it's an outdoor space that usually defines what that university looks like. Think about that. It's what weaves the buildings together that makes the sense of place. It's never really just a building. It's not Queens, because most people don't go to Queens when they visit Rutgers University, but they'll walk through the mall. Any one of these malls. So I think it's critical that we try and use landscape to really redefine what the university looks like when you come to the university, and to create a sense of place for students. Rutgers Gardens, a hidden feature of the campus. Well, I venture to say it's more than a hidden feature. They are absolutely spectacular, yet highly underutilized, and usually there's two reactions when you talk to somebody about the Rutgers Gardens. Number one is they'll tell you, boy, that's beautiful out there. Or number two, they'll say, what are the Rutgers Gardens? That's it. No one who's ever been out there has a bad impression of the Rutgers Gardens. If anything, it's always exactly the opposite. Everyone says, I mean, how many brides have been photographed at the Rutgers Gardens? Just think about that alone. How many functions have been held there? People love to go out there. It's even beautiful in the winter. It's just a beautiful place to go to, yet highly, highly, highly underutilized in the context of the university. And city and county parks are an additional resource to the Rutgers community that are most frequently accessed by faculty and staff and commuter students. We see a real big split between residents and commuters when it comes to using facilities that are outside of the university proper, so to speak. Study, Library of Science and Medicine, Rutgers Student Center, again there's overlap. This is where people go to do their studying. Douglas Library, Cook Campus Center, Kilmer Library, all of these areas that you see on your left. Libraries are still the primary source of study space for students. I want to stop here a second. In a lot of these bullets, libraries are should be in proximity to food. Probably should be the other way. Food should be in proximity to the libraries. We're not going to move the libraries. It's easier to move a food stand. All libraries need more outlets for students. 24/7 studying space is desired. Across all libraries, more group study space is needed. There are many who like to say that libraries are dying. What we find is actually that's probably the furthest thing from the truth. What libraries have come to do now, and what we need to do here at Rutgers, and work closely with the libraries, is kind of redefining the mission of how they're used. You know, the technology age has redefined it for us. So either we work with that, or the libraries will be left behind. Libraries are still the single most important place academically at the university. There's no doubt about that. It's how we use them That's critically important. And what functions that they'll be able to serve as we move forward. So I know Marian's had a lot of vision with this, and we need to kind of continue that. But students have validated what the thinking is, and I think that's critically important. Some specific library improvements, and improvements are everywhere. The Library of Science and Medicine needs more comfortable furniture. The Kilmer Library is outdated and needs more computers. Douglas could use more computers. Additional computers at Chang and Douglas. See the theme? Right? The theme, computers, 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 computers. So we have our computer labs, we have our libraries, and does this take us to a place that we can have some synergy between the two? And we need to start having that conversation, I think. Student centers and dining halls, also frequently used for studying, but don't always support those needs. Quiet lounges, group study spaces, printing and computer labs, sufficient power outages. Student centers can use more quiet space. Classrooms could be used as additional study space. Just a comment about student centers. I mean, they were not made for study space. That's not what their initial intention was. Our student centers have done a good job of trying to carve out areas for it, but that's probably not the primary responsibility of student centers. Classrooms could be used as additional study space as hours when they are available or posted. We close our classrooms typically from around 11 p.m. till 5 in the morning, mostly because they need to be cleaned, number one. Number two, for security reasons and purposes. Jay's here, knows that we cannot patrol all of these classrooms. And, you know, look, we're scared for students that at 3 a.m. at Hickman Hall in the classroom, they're sitting there and studying. Because we can't keep an eye on all of that. That is problematic for us. So, during study periods, during exam periods, we make a lot more availability, but typically during a regular season or a regular semester, that's not happening. Computer labs are well used and should be consistent in services. Classrooms. There's no classroom. Right. There's Chris. So classrooms, Allison Road Classroom, Hill Center, these are some of the ones where information came out. The River Dorms, Scott Hall, Hickman Hall, Cook Douglas Lecture Hall. Modernized or new classroom facilities are well reviewed by students and faculty. So, let's face it, what's new is new. And when it's new, it's always a heck of a lot better. We all know that. It's got all of the amenities that it should have because it's been built that way. A lot of the other classrooms, unfortunately, that you really start to see here, Scott, Ruth Adams, and Lori, were not built that way. So they weren't built for the technologies that we use today. They weren't built for the way that pedagogy is delivered today. It's just, that's not what it was. So we try and transform them and improve them and make them better, but it's an uphill battle. And I know Chris is sitting back there and he knows this fully because I think today we have somewhere in the neighborhood in New Brunswick of about 19,000 seats, right, if I'm not mistaken, give or take, on the general classroom ledger. So that's a lot of seats when you think about that and multiply that out by the number of periods. And a lot of seats and a lot of use. Some classrooms don't have standard audio visual equipment set up. Again, something that we've been working at. And we understand that it's an issue, but it's good to see the issue actually validated. Physics lecture hall is considered to be the most uncomfortable lecture hall due to the cramped seating. I'll leave you with that one, classroom. Campus mobility. So, when we look at data, and we look at what movement is, and we look at how people get around, we want to show you what happens when you take a holistic approach to it, to fully understand where people go on a given day. So what you're going to see here is a Monday morning schedule, a Monday schedule, this is an all day, right? An all day schedule on Monday for resident students. So you can see up here is the Bush campus, the Livingston campus, College Ave, and Cook Douglas down here. So you want to second to get up, start. So let's see. This is at 6 a.m. when everything's nice and quiet and no one's left their dorm chair. So it's There's 8 a.m. You can actually see the movement of students to the different campuses. So, living here, the out migration, the in migration from campus to campus. This is a Monday for resident students, and this is the amount of movement that goes on. And this is a Monday in September. I think the third Monday in September, right after the semester starts. This is how we collect data. So you say, why do you need to know that? Because this takes us into the buses. The buses are a part of the Rutgers fabric. You can like them, you can hate them. Everybody has an opinion, kind of like the Rutgers Garden, except that, well, I said there was never a negative opinion about the Rutgers Gardens. There's sometimes negative opinions about the buses. So that data tells us what's going on and how many students need to be moved and where they need to move to and the times in which they need to move. So student life and the Rutgers bus system are intertwined. That's it. There's no doubt about that. Students make non-class trips to other locations as well. It's not just for classes. So they make trips to visit friends, about 17%. About 13% to study in different locations. So they may be on Cook and they take the bus to go over to Bush, to Library of Science and Medicine or something like that. To eat at other dining halls. This is typically now, believe it or not, mostly for Livingston. A lot of trips to Livingston for dinner by students, and almost 10% of students do that. Students have preferred amenities on each location. Again, Livingston Dining, the Rec Center, Bush, the Library of College Ave. So the buses are bigger than just getting around for classes. The buses are really what Rutgers is all about. You get around on buses. That is the travel mode at Rutgers. Students are the primary users. I think we know that. Faculty and staff drive. 66% of the bus comments cited the buses are being crowded, being crowded, including those who said the system serves their needs. So, with that said, this is an interesting comment. It says that, okay, you get me where I need to go, but I'm not really crazy about the way that I have to do it, essentially. That's, when you boil it down, that's what that says. And it looks for service improvements, some suggestions at Cedar Lane bus stops, access to Edison, and connection between Bush and Livingston is difficult. Now this, I think, surprised us a little bit, because that's a pretty straight connection between Livingston and Bush, but apparently it is a difficult connection. And that could just be because of the additional students we now carry at Livingston that typically wasn't the case a couple of years ago. Some students are unprepared or unaware of how long it will take them to get to class, given the physical size of the campus. And the next bus times can be unreliable due to next bus algorithms and variations in how long bus drivers have to wait at really crowded bus stops. I don't think that's a big surprise. So, two questions we had out there, I think that were important and interesting to get some answers to. One was, have you ever been unable to take a class because of a tight class change schedule? So almost 3/4 of our students said yes. The second question is the inability to take this class likely to delay your expected graduation? Again, almost 30% said yes. And that breakout is actually on this side. So you'll see first years, not so much, because I don't think first years really are in that mode yet. Still getting to kind of learn that. The number you see, that's the highest number, and this is not a surprise to me, is juniors, because I think juniors then realize, well, got to figure out how to get all these credits in, and how am I going to do that? Somewhat with the seniors too, and I was a little surprised actually that the top one had such a high number. So, pretty interesting. Pretty interesting little factoid. Safety concerns. Again, not a surprise, downtown New Brunswick, and we're really talking about here, lower George Street is perceived not to be the safest area. That's that kind of connector between College Ave and Cook Douglas. I think that that's probably goes without saying. I don't think that's a surprise to us at all. Vehicle, pedestrian, bike conflicts exist on each campus. All of them, whether we're talking about Katzenbach bus stop, or Bartholomew Road adjacent to the residence hall, or George Street just below Johnson Drive, we've found that there's an opinion on all of these at every campus. It's not just isolated to one bus stop in one place. Poor lighting at Bush and Cook Douglas prevents students from walking home at night. They typically take the bus instead. And the west lot at Bush is isolated from the rest of campus, and commuter students feel unsafe walking there at night. So, how many of you know where the west lot is on the Bush campus? That's how isolated it is. So the west lot is a lot that sits right next to the stadium, and that is a commuter lot. And if you think about it, if you can picture it in your mind, it is pretty far off the beaten path. So I think that's not a surprise. But it's interesting, and we had this comment at a presentation yesterday. While that lot is isolated, commuter students feel unsafe, this is truly perception versus reality. I can't think of ever getting an alert coming out of there, out of that west lot, of an issue with crime at any time. But yet, because it is dark and it is far, you have that perception. I think, Jay, I don't recall anything happening, crime, from a crime perspective down in that area, and even for the most part on the Bush campus, interestingly as well. But again, it's perception, and perception sometimes is very difficult to overcome, and usually can only be overcome through education. So what does this tell us? A series of emerging themes that kind of come out of this. And I think many of these emerging themes will make their way into the master plan in the end. And these are the ones that we're kind of looking for validation to. So, what I began the presentation with, kind of giving you an overview of what a master plan is. This master plan is a little bit different in many respects than typical master plans. Typically, you do a master plan and we're kind of looking at what we call bricks and sticks. Where are we going to put this building, where are we going to put that building, where are we going to put this building. I think that's probably the last thing we've looked at. We're looking at operationally, how does the university work? How do we, from an operational perspective, deliver in order for the strategic plan to work, in order for the academic plan to work? I think that's critically important. This master plan is about enhancing the student perspective, enhancing the student experience at the university. So it's a little bit different. Will it tell us and inform us a better place to put buildings? Sure, it'll do that. But that's not its sole mission and sole focus. And actually, in my opinion, my humble opinion, well, maybe it's more than my humble opinion because it carries some weight, it'll be kind of in the background, not the forefront. The forefront is about the student experience. So what are the themes we see as we look through the data? And we've looked through a lot of data. Variety between locations is a strength. Each campus's unique qualities can be emphasized and further developed. What does this mean? When a student comes to Rutgers University in New Brunswick, they actually get 5 experiences for the price of 1. And I don't say that trying to be cute. You have 5 very distinct campuses with a distinct flavor, with a distinct history, and in many cases with a distinct mission. So, that variety, the old saying, variety is the spice of life. Well, that variety is critically important to Rutgers University and to enhancing that student experience. Campus centers, dining halls, rec centers, and libraries need to be reinforced and improved as hubs of the different campuses. That is the center of the campus, and we need to radiate out from there. Because that's the part that most everyone will remember when their time is done. Opportunities for better open spaces and connectivity exist at all the locations, every location. Again, ecological preserve, it doesn't matter. Boyd Park, you think about it. Every one of these locations have the ability to get better. We have a river, like Harvard loves to talk about its river in Cambridge. Well, we have a river. We can call it the Raritan.
instead of the Raritan. We need to exploit the use of that river and enhance it, because it is a part of the fabric of our campus. And if you look at the campus as a whole, you know, it's just like any other street running through the campus. A big street, but still a street. Better public safety in downtown New Brunswick, especially along Lower George Street. Hopefully to encourage students to kind of make that connectivity between the campuses, that it does not have to be bus driven. And this is something we need to work with our partners in the city and in the county. This is not something that Jay and I can do by ourselves. Parking, especially the location of commuter parking lots, need to be looked at a little closer. You know, we've kind of relegated them to the outskirts, and yet they're just as an important part of the campus and the campus community and campus family as resident students, so we need to recognize that. And travel between campuses is unavoidable. It's just unavoidable. We need to improve it. I think we all recognize that. In the end, we might need to expand it. Certainly with the acquisition, or the integration, I should say, of UMDNJ, now Rutgers Biomedical and Health Services. You know, we've expanded the size of the campus exponentially, both at Bush and at College Avenue. And our services haven't really caught up to that yet. We're not going to build a monorail, I can tell you that, but it'll still be buses, because we just want to make Jack Molina's life miserable, but it will still be buses. We have to enhance the learning environment from classroom to residence hall. We have to better look at how and where students are, what their housing choices are in relation to where the bulk majority of classes may be, so that we can take some pressure off of that mobility as well. So that's a sophisticated software issue, algorithms. That's not easy to do, but it's something we need to look at doing without, you know, saying, well, you can't live there. But we need to better mesh that in some way. We need to adapt learning environments to accommodate emerging technological changes. Informal learning through group study. We need to encourage interdisciplinary collaboration and research partnerships. This also means putting up more research opportunities for undergrads as well, not just for graduate students. We need to use that landscape we talked about to create legible and cohesive campus environments. It is the fabric that ties our campuses together. It is the picture that you leave with when you leave here, whether you're here for 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years as a student, or whether you came here for a conference. That's the picture that you leave with. And you may only go to that conference on the Bush campus or the Coke campus. So it can't be that only one of the campuses looks that way. They all need to look that way. And we need to improve efficiency of our physical and energy resources. Look, we're very proud of what we do already by way of sustainability. We have an 8 megawatt solar farm out there. I'm sorry, 10 megawatts of alternative energy that we produce. That's, when you think about what that is, to put that in perspective, only a day like today, maybe even next week, we could power all of Livingston campus without ever using actual electricity. Right? We're using electricity, but it all comes from solar. So think about that. So we're very proud of what we do. We're very proud of our 67% recycling rate. We're very proud of that. We're very proud of all the programs that we put into place. So we've only scratched the surface. You know, we need a real framework for sustainability. We need to work harder at it. We need to include more people in it. We've only scratched the surface in what it is that we can do. And this is where we are. So I'm here today to present what we found to you so far. I need you to go to masterplan.rutgers.edu. After tomorrow, presentations will all be uploaded. They'll be there. There's a reason for that. I didn't want you to print it out, come here and, you know, throw darts at me yet. I want to be able to leave the room first. And we'll have an email system, we call it a Dropbox, right? For your comments, your suggestions, questions, whatever it may be. I'll take questions now, but questions, whatever it might be, because there'll be a lot of information there. And it was way too much information to absorb in an hour here. It's just impossible, you can't do it. So I need you to go out there and do that, because we need to kind of validate and hear back from you as to what your thoughts on are from what we're giving you. Now remember, what I'm giving you already came from you, right? So I didn't make this up. It's not like, you know, you sat in a room and said, okay, these are all the pieces. This actually came from all of you. This came from those meetings, this came from those surveys, you know, this came from the forums that we've had, this came from whether it was individual meetings or group meetings or whatever it might have been, from board interaction. So this all already came from you. We just want to make sure we're not misinterpreting something or missing something. Okay? So like I said, we're here now, right about there, beginning of April. What you see back in here is these emerging themes that are going to develop this plan. We'll be working on this through the summer, so that sometime in the early fall we really will have it put together in a good draft version that we can put out for everyone to review and again have an opportunity to probably comment on it. We're circling the wagons back up with Newark and Camden. This is a university-wide master plan. They're not lagging behind. We'll be in Camden next week, but Camden is changing leadership. By July 1st, they will have a new chancellor. So it's a little unfortunate because it kind of puts us in a little bit of a bad position, but not a terrible position. We've at least collected all of the information and all of the data. Newark just changed leadership January 1st with Dr. Nancy Cantor as the new chancellor, so she's now working with her staff and her community as well on her strategic plan, and we'll feed that then into this master plan for Newark as well. And that should be done somewhere in the September, October timeframe. So our intent is to kind of wrap this up by the end of the year. With that, I'd be more than happy to take any questions, comments, whatever you may have. Chris?
Chris Moret from Scheduling and Space Management. Whittled my 3-hour comment down to 30 seconds. I think it's a great start, definitely. I think that the Sasaki tool is great, especially if it's very on the conceptual level, you know, about spatial activity, not on buildings, so we can be fluid. But my thought, which I think we all share, and I think sometimes it's important to say that out loud, is I think that this is a start, but obviously it's not complete. You know, some of the numbers we should continue to validate. Again, not to go wrong because we took 6 months, we could have taken 8 years, and we'd all be retired or closer to retirement. So I think the 3 specific things I would say is, number 1, as we go forward, let's be really specific and take it into the process to identify what we still don't know. So many things, and we will never know them all. What don't we know? We were just in a meeting this morning about classrooms. Who gets locked out of classes? Well, yes, I got locked out of a class. Did you not pay? You didn't have prerequisites, etc. What don't we know? I think we should really bake in continued learning. Tony, I'm sure you're doing this, you know, through the process and beyond. Continued learning, continued information gathering. And I think a specific instance of those 2 things is RCM. I mean, hopefully, best we can, the timing's not always convenient, we should project what's happening on the space front with RCM, you know, as much as we can before any major decisions get made. That's not totally possible, but I do think it's a very important representative example of what I was saying about making sure as many of those blind spots are filled before we make these multi-million-dollar decisions.
So let me follow that up with a quick comment. So master plan is a living document, right? It's not meant to, we complete this, pick a date, December 31st, and we bind it, put it on a shelf, and, well, that was great. That's not the intent. Master plan needs to be continuously updated, worked on. Things change. You'll hear the phrase all the time, 9/11 changed the world, right? So things change. In a year from now, we may be looking at a different way to admit students. 3 years ago, did anyone think we would be, UMDNJ and Rutgers University would be one university? And you're looking at the largest integration of a Research 1 or 2 Research 1 universities in the world that's ever happened. Ever happened. This is not, you know, like a little joke. This is one of the biggest things that's ever happened in higher education ever in the history of higher education, was this integration. So things change. So master plans need to be reflective of changes, and they need to be continuously updated. That job, by the way, falls to my colleague here, Frank Wong. I'm not paying any attention, he's on his phone, but Frank Wong, who is the university's actually master planner. And that falls to him, to make sure that we're always on top of this as we move forward. So I just wanted to, I don't want to leave anyone with the wrong impression. I mean, we bind the book, it's done, put it on a shelf, it's all finished. We'll move on. Anybody else?
It's not just the students that we should be looking at. There's also the faculty members, there's also the staff, there's the townies, there's the alumni, and they might come around every once in a while too. And so, you know, we need to take these people into account as well as the students.
I agree. We do, and we have. So we've reached out to alumni groups, and we've reached out to, the gentleman said it's not just about students, that we need to also talk to alumni, and we need to talk to neighbors and constituencies in town, and all of the other groups, you know, in addition to students and faculty and staff, but the other groups too that surround us, and that's very true. We can't accomplish a lot if we don't have decent, I'm going to use the word decent, town-gown relationships, because it becomes that much more difficult to advance any cause, regardless of what that cause is. So we do try and do that to the best ability we can. So, surprised you waited until the numbers late.
How are you?
Okay, how are you, my friend?
Good. One of the things you touched on for the library was computers. Was it a little bit? It's like outlets. So, computers are great and printing spots are great. So, records, I think, is vital. If that goes, there needs to be a bigger printing spot. I'm thinking art on Bush is another one like that. But one of my favorite places to study is the Cook Campus Center when I'm out there. Upstairs, there's a quiet room with booths, and every booth has an outlet, and that goes rare at Rutgers. So, instead of computers, maybe outlets out like that.
I agree. Thank you. That's very true. That's one of our biggest issues, keeping up with, you know, we can put a lot of outlets there too. There's Janice Davey, Harity, and facilities who do a lot of that work. And the unfortunate part is that sometimes there's just not enough electricity in the building to put in a lot of outlets. So there's this domino effect that works all the way back. That's why we had to put that 69 kV out on Bush campus, that big, you can almost pull wires from out there. How are you?
Good. Great work by everyone. I just wanted to follow up on a comment about where students are choosing to study, and I do think that maybe it's like clarification on one of the comments. It's not that students are picking a library or a student center to study; they just want particular things when they're studying. And so there is more of a blending across the country between libraries wanting coffee shops, and student centers accommodating some of the field we call more variety of zone requirements. You may want to be, for example, here in the building, you may want to be downstairs in the food court, you know, studying, working, maybe have your iPod on. You still want to be part of the action, still want to be part of that bustling. Or you may want to be here on the fourth floor, which unless there's some meeting going on, really is quiet. Or unless there's something going on here, the lounge right out here. So this is just different feels for this thing. So I would hate to see just more of a split between, you know, libraries that just work for studies, you know, other facilities that are just for other things. Where I think one of the earlier comments where students really see the integration of social and academic space when they're part of the classroom, and I think centers and libraries have a lot more in common, and both need to flourish and provide for those, you know, especially with lots of options.
Yeah, I agree with you. I couldn't agree more. I think it's important that, and we're looking at one of these emerging themes, these zones or these hubs, where there's lots of this